can show me on your hands. You can put them on your hands. 5 for certain. And 1s. And then everyone choose between 3 or 4. It looks like 4 is the winner there. So 1, 4, and 5 will do those 3. Now, we haven't talked about this type of mapping, but once I show you how to read it, then finding the range will be easy. So on the left is all your x values, on the right is all your y values. So if we were looking for ordered pairs, you would look at the arrow, this x goes with this y, you would write that as ordered pair. But I'm not looking for that part. I just need the range, so my y values, least series. Questions on that? I will say that 2 of these numbers go to 4, but we would still only list that once. Okay. For number 4, we have to solve the following equation, so we can do that first by distributing. So we have negative 12x, sorry, this is going to color change, minus 6 minus 2x plus 6 equals 15x minus 20. Combine like terms on the same side, so do exactly what it says. We can combine the negative 12x and the negative 2x and the negative 6 and the plus 6. The negative 12x minus 2x would be negative 14x. Negative 6 plus 6 is 0, so I don't need to put anything there. And then I can move the 15x over by subtracting. I could move the 14 over, but then I have 0 equals, and everything would be on the right, and I want to get them separated. And then I would divide both sides by negative 29. And we'll end up with some fraction that I don't believe can be simplified. So x equals 20 over 29. Questions on that one? And then in number 5, we had to find the perimeter. So you could either add up all the sides or use your P equals 2W plus 2L. Either or would have worked. So let's say I say this is P equals 2L plus 2W. Instead of doing this plus this plus this plus this, because you remember there are 4 sides. This would be P equals 2 times, let's say this is my length, 3y minus 5. Plus 2 times whatever W is, which would be 2y. And then I could start to simplify. So distribute this 2. So we get 6y minus 10 plus 4y. Just multiply those. And combine our like terms, 6y and 4y, to get 10y minus 10. So if I knew what y was, I could actually find the actual length and actual width and then keep going, but I don't. So that is my perimeter, and that's as far as we can go with that Questions there? So then we're going to go, did you have a question? No, okay. So I'll show you guys your Delta Math. You guys had 3 Delta Maths that were due on Friday.
Like an expression, and the other one is like real, it's literal.
Yes. So the "It's raining cats and dogs" is an expression, an exaggeration. The other one, it's actually happening. It's real. It's literally happening. There are actual cats and dogs falling from the sky. So when you think about the word literal, there are some other examples. They're kind of blurry, but when you say "I got your back," you're not saying that you actually have that in your hands. There is the actual definition. I'm going to zoom in on this actually. So there's the actual definition for literal, actual, or without exaggeration, but a literal equation is a formula or equation that involves several variables. So it's like solving a regular equation, but instead of getting an actual number, you're going to get a variable equals some other variables. So when we're solving a literal equation, we're still solving it like normal. Focus. We're still solving it like normal, but we're not going to get an actual answer. We're solving it to get a variable by itself. So we literally solved the equation, but we don't know this is supposed to say x plus y equals 7. Like if we were solving that for x or for y, we would still have variables in there. Okay, go on to the next page. Okay, so as we're solving this, be using these hints if you need to figure out how to start something. You might want to circle or underline or highlight the variable that you want to solve. That will help you distinguish between all the different ones. Think backwards. How would I solve this and get it by itself like a normal equation? If there are fractions, try to remove those by multiplying by the reciprocal is really what I should say. Divide if you have to. If you are stuck, you could use this to rewrite the equation with numbers and place the variables, but you still have to put the variables back. So we're going to do some regular equations and then solve the literal and see what that looks like. So in this example, how would I solve this for x? So that x equals 5, I get a solution, that's it. Now, in example 2, I only have variables, but I'm trying to get h by itself. How would I do that? Divide both sides by g. So that when I do that, the g's on this side cancel, and I'm left with h equals m divided by g. I have no idea what that means, but if I had the numbers for h, for m, and for g, they should equal each other. Questions on that? So we have isolated h, we have solved for h, and that was the goal, to solve this equation for h. For example 3, how would I get x by itself there? Would I do that first? No. I will do that, but not first. Yes. So we have 2x equals 6, and then just like number 1, then divide both sides by 2. So if example 4 is set up similarly, what would be our first step if we're trying to get x by itself? I heard subtract b. So we have ax equals, when I move that to the other side, these b's cancel, but this just gets rewritten, c minus b. And then divide both sides by a. So our answer is x equals c minus b over a. Questions there? Okay, on to the next. These are similar, so we'll only do one of them, and then we'll do one of those. So for, I'll let you guys choose 5 or 6. Okay, so for 6, we have to solve for y. What do we think would be the first step there? Maddie, did you have an answer? It's okay. So I wouldn't want to, if I were to do something with this, I'd have to move the entire term because the y is connected to it. So if I were doing something to that, I'd be adding it, but then I would just be moving the y to the other side. So that wouldn't really help me. What else might we do? Laura?
Subtract the x.
Yes. We could do that because that has nothing to do with the y, so I can get rid of that term. And I'm going to subtract the entire term to the other side. Actually, I'm going to rewrite this first. So subtract it to the other side. So we get negative 6y equals 17 minus 3x. And then? Fun. Yes. But in this case, we have to divide every single thing by negative 6 because negative 6 and 3 could reduce or simplify. So we have y equals negative 17 over 6 plus, because the negatives will cancel out, 3 over 6 would simplify to be what? 1/2 x. Or you can put that as x over 2. Either or would be fine. And that would be your final answer. So anytime you have numbers that you could use to simplify, you need to divide every single thing. But if nothing would simplify, so let's say this was a 4 instead, nothing here would simplify, so then I could just divide the entire thing by 4, and it would be one big fraction. Questions on that before we do 7 or 8? So let's do that. Let's do 7. We have to solve this for c. How would we do that? Think about what we just did. Go ahead. Get rid of that AB, move it to the other side. So we have CD equals G minus AB.
Then divide both sides by C. Oh, divide both sides by D.
There we go. Divide both sides by D. So that C equals G minus AB all over D. Yes?
Sorry, I just like writing. What did you say that we divide after we do the minus AB? Like what?
D.
What?
Sorry. Focus. Do we have any questions on that one? I want you to try number 8 really quickly. If you finish that, you can go back and try 5, I think it was. Yep. So number 8, and then I'll be okay. Thank you. You all got that as an answer? Great. Did anyone have questions about that? Okay. Go on to the next page. And I want you to find any of those you want to see, do, go over, have questions about. Or 3. Okay. Sure. 3 and 6.
Can we do 5?
Sure. So, starting with number 2. If we have to solve this for t, we want to get rid of the other p and the pr. So we would first get rid of this single p since it doesn't have anything to do with this term by subtracting. And then since p and r and t are all next to each other, they're all multiplying. So to get rid of p and r, we're going to divide, but at the same time. So that p and r both cancel, leaving a minus p over pr. Questions on that one? 3, we have to deal with this fraction. So we have to solve for f, which is inside the parentheses. We can't do anything with f until we get rid of the parentheses. So we can get rid of the 5/9 by doing one of two things. Distributing or multiplying by the reciprocal. Which would we rather? Multiply by the reciprocal, okay. So take this, flip it, and multiply on both sides. So that the 5/9 and the 9/5 cancel, and this gets attached to C. And because this has not now canceled, we can drop the parentheses. And then our last step to get F by itself. Say it louder, Alex. 32 on both sides. Now, these aren't like terms, so we cannot combine them because one has a C, one does not. So this would be our final equation. Questions on that one? Some of these are actual real formulas you can use in real life. So if you're ever curious on how to convert Celsius to Fahrenheit, that is that. Number 5, we are solving for B. How do we think we would get that by itself? Yes. Get rid of the D on the denominator first by multiplying. We have AD equals B plus C, and then so the C's cancel. We have AD minus C equals B. Questions on that one? Six is going to be very similar to the Fahrenheit Celsius problem, except we also have another variable on the outside. So we are solving this one for B1, or B sub 1. Again, in order to get that out of the parentheses, we have to do something with the 1/2 and the H. Okay? You could do that, or distribute, either or. You should get the same outcome either way. But if we were to do that, we're only going to do that to the 1/2. Multiply this by 2, or 2/1, and this by 2. So we get 2a equals h. And then this is still in parentheses because we haven't gotten rid of that h yet. Now to get rid of h, we could again distribute or divide, but in this case it would be easier to just divide. I'm going to divide both sides by h. That way the parentheses drop. And then our last step. We have 2a over h minus b2 equals b1. Questions there? Okay, we'll do last questions on the next page, and then you'll have time for questions. Did you have one else? No, okay. Anyone else have one of those that they want to see, do, go over, and have questions about? Eight. Okay.
Did someone already say 5?
I'm going to say 5 and 8 are very similar, so you actually won't do that one.
Okay, could we do 4
We'll do 4 and then 8, and then you should be able to see how to do 5 based on 8, but yes, we could do 7. For number 4, we have to solve for m. What would be our first step? On both sides. So we have 2a equals mv squared. And then, so we're trying to get m by itself. We gotta get rid of this. Divide by not m, but v squared. If this problem asked us to solve for v instead of m, we would have divided by m, yes, but then we would have had to take the square root of both sides to undo the square. Okay, questions on that one? We'll do 7 next. This is a pi symbol. I draw my pi's like this, just so you are aware. So if we have to solve for r, we have to get rid of the square and the pi. What would our first step be? This is similar to how we got rid of v squared here.
Would we divide
So the pi's cancel on the right. We have a over pi equals r squared. And then to get r by itself, say it louder. Take the square root of both sides. So when we do that, the square root and the square cancel each other out, just leaving r. Any questions on that one? For number 8, we are solving for x. How could we get x by itself? What would the 3 be? Sorry. Subtract it, yes. To the other side. So you can put this in order, it doesn't really matter.
Divide both sides by -4.
Do we have anything that could simplify with this -4?
Yes.
Yes, so we have to divide every single thing separately. So that this would become negative 1/2 A or negative A over 2, either or. This would become a positive 3/4 J. This would become a negative 9/4 Z equals X. There were only 2 steps. It's just a lot of fractions, so it looks complicated.
So why did the sign change from negative to positive and positive to negative?
Because we divided by a negative, so every time we divided by a negative, the signs would change. Because this was a positive, we divided by a negative, so that became a negative. We divided by a negative, it was already negative, so that became a positive, and so on and so forth. Yes. Yes. Okay. In a minute, you guys are going to work on this delta math that is also due on Friday. / when you finish that, work on missing delta mass, work on the review that you guys have for your quiz and test coming up. But before you do that, I just want to talk about one thing. When you get to the delta mass, you might see something like, I'm trying to make up a problem where this is the case. I just made up a problem. Let's say we have to solve for G and you get something like this, where there are 2 of them. You can't combine them because the M and the Z aren't like terms. What you would do in a case like this is, usually we have something outside of parentheses and we distribute it and it gets multiplied to both. We're going to like undo that and take the G out of both of those and put it out front of parentheses. And then when we do that, if we were trying to get G by itself, I would divide both sides by what's inside the parentheses. So that cancels. So you might get problems like this, or problems where maybe the MG is on this side and you have to get them to the same side and then do that process. If you have questions, raise your hand. I'll be around to help you with that. So work on this delta math. Then you can work on missing or the review, the segment.